Hi TBN family, and welcome to TBN Meets. As a church body, we have a responsibility to advance the kingdom of God. Paul Clayton Gibbs and his ministry, the Pais Movement, is international disciple-led organisation, being a catalyst in schools, communities and churches with the aim of transforming and equipping people to advance the kingdom of God. Welcome Paul, and thank you so much for joining me in the studio today.
No, thank you. It's a great opportunity. I appreciate it.
No worries. Well, I'd love to know, before we get started, a little bit about you. So who is Paul?
We live in Texas, so even though we're from Manchester originally, I'm married with my wife, and we have 2 sons and 2 granddaughters.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. That's nice. So you're living in Texas at the moment?
Yeah.
Wow. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? I've heard that they have great food.
Yeah, they have a lot of food.
A lot of food, yeah.
No, it's good. The people are really friendly. The weather's a little bit different from Manchester, where we're from. We moved about 17 years ago, and it's been a great base to kind of reach the rest of the world, really. So it's been wonderful. Yeah, it's been good.
That's brilliant. And what brings you to the UK?
So I'm touring. We have this thing called the masterclass suite, where we equip churches in really practical ways to reach into the community, and that's what we've been touring around. So
fantastic. And before we get into the Pais project and your brilliant book, which I have seen a little bit of, you mentioned in your bio that you combine ancient methods of discipleship with a communication style that is creative and fun. So what are these ancient methods of discipleship?
Oh, well, so many years ago, because most of the people that I work with are kind of that 20-something age group, I was looking into kind of styles of learning and just the ways that people want to really access information in the Bible. And at the same time, I was reading, doing some study on rabbinic teaching, and realised that there was kind of cross or connection between postmodernity and the questions that people were asking and the way in which the rabbis taught. So they're the methods we talk about. So I tend to use that methodology, the kind of things that Jesus did, is what I'm really aiming to do. Is how did Jesus read and teach the Bible? How did Jesus disciple? Is that different from what we do today? And how do we rediscover that? So,
no, it's really interesting. And why do you think these methods, or do you think these methods are not as much considered today?
Yeah. I mean, I have a slight concern about just how corporate the church has become. I think that I love things being done well. I think that's fantastic. But I think we definitely lost some of the things that Jesus did. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we think he's old-fashioned, I don't know. But I think that they work really, really well. So working particularly with non-Christians in schools, just the rabbis' ability to provoke questions has been phenomenal, because all around the world, if we're in schools and a young person asks a question, we're given much more opportunity to share answers. So really good methodology, and we're kind of trying to reintroduce that to the church, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask in that way, what are some of maybe a quick 3 things that you see, I don't know, Jesus doing that, well, all of the things he does works well, don't they? But things that work well. So you mentioned provoking questions. Is there anything else that you kind of focus on? Yeah,
actually, funny enough, we have 3 questions. So one of them is, why is it we spend so much time, energy and resources inviting people when Jesus spent so much of his getting himself invited? So how do we get ourselves invited kind of as an individual into a conversation, or big picture, how do we as the church get invited into society rather than pushing our way onto people? And with discipleship, we ask, why is it we spend so much time, energy and resources educating people and then hoping they have an experience, whereas Jesus took people on an experience that led to education. So all of our methodology kind of uses those kind of dynamics, and I believe much more effectively than things I was kind of maybe taught when I grew up as a Christian.
Right, no, that's really good. Not just getting people into church, but the church being out there. So when it comes to the Pais project, I think you mentioned in your bio that it's kingdom-driven.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Okay, so this is where I may be, I'll just share my personal opinion. I think there is and probably always has been 2 types of Christianity. One, I call it Christian-centric. So to pursue a good life, do it God's way, so that God gives you what you want. Or kingdom-centric, which is to pursue God's kingdom, do it God's way, so we give him what he wants. And for me, that's the prism through which everything else is done or seen. So as an organisation, we teach a kingdom-centric gospel, In other words, Jesus didn't come to simply rescue you, he came to recruit you. So yes, he had to rescue you as well, because how can darkness bring light? But ultimately, Jesus came to recruit us to advance his kingdom on the planet. And that, we believe, that requires different tools from what we've been using as well, and a different kind of gospel message almost, in the sense of just really helping people understand their uniqueness and what God has for them to do on the planet. So.
Right. It's really great because we're all called to do something. Otherwise, the story ends there, doesn't it? And it's great that we get to partner with him and take part. So you mentioned that you guys do that through schoolwork,
Yes.
but I think there's a lot that you do. So why don't you give us just a quick brief of all that the Pais project is up to?
Yeah, so Pais offers a free mission year or gap year to young adults, so 18 to 35, either a 1 year or 3 year option. And then we train them in our methodology. We place them in teams and put them in churches for at least a year, usually longer, and they act as a relational bridge between the church and the community both ways. So equipping the church to reach the community and reaching out into the community and connecting with young people in schools and different parts of society, and bringing them into church as well. So we're all about mobilising the many, not just the few, and coming alongside the local church to do that. So. And then, we have just different tools that we use. So discipleship, Bible study, we do it a little bit differently from where maybe the way most of us have grown up learning Bible study. And most of that's been kind of discovered as we've been on the mission field, realising, well, what we did in church doesn't really work here. And that's where we thought, well, what did Jesus do? And then found some different methodology to do that. And the masterclass tour is all about training the church to do those kind of things.
Right, well, it's a great explanation. I think now would be a good time to have a little look at what Pais is. Well, it's amazing that people can take out the time to develop those skills and kind of work with you guys. Now, 25 years ago, you did a prayer walk across England.
That's right, yeah.
What was your experience walking across the UK?
25 years ago when I did it was odd because I was kind of walking into the unknown. So we had this idea of Pais, and at that time we were just working in Manchester, and at that time we hoped we might be able to reach the rest of the country. Somebody gave me a word that, everywhere I tread, God will give me. So I thought, well, okay, I'll give that a go. So I walked across England. It took me 2 weeks, and nobody knew of Pais at the time. And it was a walk. It was kind of a little bit lonely, but it was really, really good. It was great, and it was. And then things took off after that. Kind of doors opened up all over the UK in schools, and then just did it recently as well. So.
And how was the recent one?
Different, because we planned it before COVID. So the idea, we're in 17 different nations now. So we had people signed up all around the world to do a through hike or a prayer walk for their schools in 17 different countries. We had thousands. And then just before I was about to do it, the pandemic came. So it ended up me doing it one more time on my own pretty much. And I don't know, it ended up being less celebratory and more encouraging people to stick with what God calls you to do through crises. And that's what I think came out of it. So I blogged every day, and probably the biggest response was when we blogged about not cutting down a tree in winter time because you can't see any fruit, but just kind of keep persevering. And now things are back up and running, which has been great. So, yeah.
It's definitely a timely message for that kind of period where all of us felt like we've been stopped.
Yeah.
So did you experience any testimonies along the way for yourself or other people?
So my plan was the second time to do it, kind of reenact the first time. So on my own, a little bit of solitary, me and God. And then I kept bumping into people. There was a guy who was a bit worried about going through some of the kind of mountainous area in the Lake District, so he asked if he could stay with me. And at one point I thought, well, I need to get rid of him so I can pray for people. And I thought, well, that's a bit crazy. So it was a bit different. I ended up having some chances to talk to people about Jesus, which was great along the way. And this time we prayed for the schools of the world instead of just England. So I'm hoping the same thing will happen. It feels already that the schools are opening up throughout the world anyway, which is great. So that
is brilliant, and such an important age group as well.
It's
funny what you say. Sometimes we can pray, Lord, remove these people so that I can learn how to reach people.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's funny. So you've written several books. How did you get into writing? Have you always enjoyed it?
No. I didn't do particularly well at school. I hated school, to be honest, which is the irony. But many years ago, people said, you need to write a story about Pais. And I asked people to do it for me, and then realised I was supposed to do it. And then gradually, hopefully, I've got better. And 7 books later, feel like I'm almost an author now.
Almost.
Almost.
Well, I'm sure you are. And in your book called Shalom, you mentioned that Jesus didn't necessarily impose himself on anyone. But as you mentioned earlier, he got invited to places. As Christians, sometimes we can feel like we're pushing ourselves into other people's lives. In your experience, how can we be invited without being pushy?
Oh, well, there's a few different areas, but I'll give you a synopsis if that's okay. So more the bigger picture. We base it from Luke 10, where Jesus says, go into the villages, and we use these 4 words, spread. So spread, and don't decide in advance who's going to respond. Spot the people leaning forward, which I'll talk about in a minute. Stay with them. Don't move from house to house because you get a better offer. And then send them to reach those who ignored you in the first place. And so a key thing there is spreading, not deciding who's going to respond because you never know. And then giving people a way to lean forward. So in schools, that might be we're in a classroom where they have to be, giving them an opportunity to come to something that's voluntarily. And if it's voluntary, we know that they're leaning forward, and then we engage with them. Or with questions when I'm in a business and I'm speaking in a business, I tend to, and this is the rabbinic style, is kind of hint at things and hope they'll pick up and ask me questions. So rather than telling everything I want to say, I'll in schools I used to say, there's a book that I found that gives me some phenomenal answers, but I won't mention what it is, because I know at some point one of the students is going to ask me, what's that book? And it gives me more opportunity. And I find that when people ask you questions, particularly in businesses, whatever you say is more relevant, but more socially acceptable as well. So it's helpful.
Because they've asked.
Yeah.
Right, no, that's really helpful. And in your most recent book, The Shapes Test, it's for helping us to understand ourselves, understand others, and also make ourselves understood.
Yeah.
And I love things like this. But what was it that inspired you to write that book?
So the first Pais team, we had 5. There were 5 of us, and we all got on really well. We had a young lady from the south of the country. You can probably tell from the north. And then myself and another lad called Gary. In the north, we kind of tease people we like, and we joke with them. And we thought that this young lady understood that. She was called Joanne. And then one day I get a phone call from the police. Mr. Gibbs, we've just, do you know Miss Joanne? And I said, yeah, she works with me on this team. Oh, great. Do you know Mr. Gary? Yes, he works on the same team. Well, last night, Mr. Gibbs, Joanne called Crime Watch UK to say that she thinks that Gary is the serial killer we featured on the show last night. So it took me 5 minutes to talk him off the edge and know this is, not the guy. But the next day I said to Joanne, Joanne, did you really call crime watch? Do you really believe that Gary could have murdered 6 women this year? I mean, we've been really busy for a start. Do you think she could have done that? To which she replied, I wasn't sure, but you have to go with your gut instinct, don't you? That's what she said. And I think our gut instinct is not a good measure. I think most of us secretly think we're really good at figuring people out, but we're not as good as we think. And so in the church, I think the church needs to have the highest levels of relational intelligence, because really it's our love for one another that will help people realise we're his disciples. So it's all things we do are very practical tools. So how do we give people some kind of template to help them figure out how to do relationship better? And like you say, understand yourself, understand others, and make yourself understood. So that was the original spark, I guess, that story.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite a good story. That aside, in work environments, how important is it to understand each other?
It's key. So I think one of the problems is we mistake a personality trait for a character trait. So personality is amoral. If you're loud or quiet, you're organised or disorganised, doesn't make you a good person or bad person. It's just a personality trait, and God made you that way. You're unique. Character is moral, so if you're faithful or unfaithful, honest or dishonest. I think what happens, particularly in meetings and plannings and organising things, we mistake a personality trait for a character trait. So somebody says something, and because we don't think the same way they do, we interpret as, oh, you're not on my side, or you hate my idea, or the way you look is telling me such and such a thing, which isn't true. So misunderstandings cause a big problem. I mean, there are many other things, but that's one of the things I think that it helps with is, so we bring teams from all over the world, put them together for a year. They pretty much live with each other and work together. And we found that the shapes test can really diffuse tensions that could erupt. So we generally don't have too many pastoral issues. I'm not saying that's just because of the shapes test, but it helps.
It sounds brilliant, and especially we're in such a multicultural country as well. There's so many different ideas, different views,
yes,
different family cultures. The list is endless.
Exactly.
So having that kind of understanding, or at least wanting to understand, sounds brilliant. So I had a little read of the book earlier and I was really enjoying myself. So I think it would be great to hear a little snippet of the book now, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Brilliant.
Relational intelligence seems to be on the decline. The ability to converse, collaborate, and cope with the inevitable stresses and conflicts in everyday relationships appears to be disintegrating. This leads me to ask, why can't we all just get along? Why do people behave the way they do? Why don't people understand me? My desire is to find a way for everyone to understand everyone else a little bit better. This may help us more intentionally and thoughtfully communicate, forgive, love, care, motivate, and challenge each other so that we can all become the best version of ourselves. I'm a triangle. My wife is a square, my eldest son is a star, and my youngest is a circle. What shape are you? If you are a square, you are likely someone who brings a sense of right and wrong, and you know how things should be. If you are a circle, you know the importance of everyone getting on the same page, and you have a strong desire for peace and harmony. If you are a star, the world will never stay the same, and you know it. You don't mind it. In fact, it is often what switches you on. If you are a triangle, you see things from different angles. You like to ponder why things are the way they are and get to the root of them. My desire is to both affirm the positive qualities that you already see in yourself, plus fan into flame the gifts that may lay dormant within you. This idea excites me because helping you understand and build out your shape can create a great catalyst for the new and amazing possibilities you can bring to our world.
That's brilliant. So that's your writing, which means you're a triangle.
Yes.
I'm a triangle. I did the shape test earlier, and I am also a triangle. So I'm sure you know, what does that say about us?
We're brilliant. That's
the best.
Normally we're strategic, and we like theory, and we tend to invest in things that we believe are really significant. Maybe we're not so great at the kind of mundane things, so I'm always kind of losing my keys and little things. Yeah.
My husband will love this. I lose my keys all the time. He hands me them all the time.
It's the way God made you. It's fine.
What can I do? That's brilliant. So how does the shape test actually work?
So people go to the website, theshapestest.com. It's free, it's fast, and it's fun to take. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes. And they just get, they just fill it in. It's 7 questions, multi-choice. And they get a instant response. And if they want to, they can make a donation to the work of any size, and they will get the order of their shapes and the percentage of each shape. Because none of us is one shape. We're actually a mixture of all 4, but to different degrees. So I'm a triangle, star, square, circle, and all of us are like that. So yeah, the idea is for it not to be a cage, but more of a stage. So it's a platform from which to communicate about yourself and connect with other people as well.
No, it's really helpful, and it does tell you some of the maybe more helpful qualities and some things that maybe might cause friction.
Yeah.
So really good. And where did the research come for the shapes test?
So I go into the details in the book of how it comes about, but essentially we use lots of different formats. So originally Hippocrates in ancient Greece came up with the idea of 4 personality types, but he based them on bodily fluids called humours, which was debunked. But the idea of 4 personality types stayed, and then eventually people added to it, Carl Jung and Myers-Briggs, and now you've got these multiple things where you can go on Facebook. So I know which Disney princess I am, but it doesn't help me as much as you would imagine. So we wanted something that was really simple and very easy. So you say to me, I'm a triangle, and I think, okay, I probably know generally what annoys you, what frustrates you, some of the gifts and abilities you bring, what you're going to bring to a team, what's going to motivate you, what's going to demotivate you, what's going to stress you out. So I don't know you, but there are certain things I probably have a good platform from which to build my understanding of you from.
And you can look for my keys.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've probably been doing this for a little while. Can you identify people without them doing the shapes test?
Well, I try not to.
Probably for the best.
But sometimes I do, yes. So sometimes if I get to know them, if they do certain things, I give giveaways, so stars tend to rant and rave and appear quite angry when they're not really angry, they're just kind of frustrated. And yeah, so there are a few giveaways, but generally it's best to take the test.
No, that's good. Probably very wise. So you also run a shapes test masterclass.
Yes.
What can people expect from the session? What happens?
Lots of fun. It's very interactive. So not every masterclass includes these, but there are 167 different personality traits for every shape in the book. So when I do the masterclass, normally we look at how to understand ourselves. We look at conflict and collaboration. So how do we build something good together? So it's interactive, it's fun. Get booked by lots of churches and businesses to go in, help congregations figure out how can we engage with each other, which is particularly important, I think, after the pandemic, everybody's getting back into church, understanding what they bring to a team. So yeah, it's interactive. It's a lot of humour. You can expect a lot of humour, lots of discussion, and lots of learning as well.
Oh, fabulous. So where can people go to find the book and these resources?
So any good Amazon site will sell the book, or they can, if they want the masterclass, they can go to masterclasssuite.com or paismovement.com, and they can find all the details there as well.
Oh, fabulous. And so you've had a lot on. What is next for you for the Pais movement?
Well, we've got some plans that we've just started a youth academy. So our aim is to train 10,000 young people in mission. So how do they connect with people in their school? That's a big thing that we're kind of working on right now. One of the questions we ask is, why do we get people saved and then maybe we disciple them when Jesus discipled people that led to their salvation? So how do we start discipling young people? And that's the big thing, I think, one of the main things that we're working on right now, which is kind of important, I think. So, and I'm about to write another book as well on this idea of kingdom-centric, kind of a new way of looking at Christianity.
Because again, that kingdom-focused mindset. Well, I wish I could sit here and talk to you all day, but we are out of time. But thank you so much for sharing on the Pais movement, your passion for mission, and of course the Shapes test. Make sure everybody does it. So thank you, and thank you TBN viewers for watching. If you'd like to know more about Paul Gibbs, the Pais movement, or the new book, The Shapes Test, all the information is on the screen for you now. Until next time on TBN Meets, goodbye.